You did I'm catching you on a fresh off a deal as well, so feel free to name drop that. Yeah, but yeah, just tell me how you're finding it.
It completely different because I was the head coach at New England, and then when I got fired, so to speak, on gardening leave. So Carlos Gil was a player that I signed at New England, and the agent Jose Rodriguez is the owner of the agency. They were expanding, and he asked me if I would be interested in opening up the U.S. office. So I sat on it for a few months, while I thought about what I wanted to do, and I got a lot more information on the agency world, and I decided to do it. So it's been, apart from COVID, it's been a fantastic experience. Part of a big part of agency work is your personal relationships with the players and being able to sign new players, and especially with the young players, is meeting the families and whatnot. And COVID really put a damper on that, but we were able to sign a really good stable of young players, and now we're moving on to the next level and trying to sign some more senior players within the group in the US market. Carlos Gil is with the Promo Sport in the UK, but as I brought him over, we just did his contract extension to New England, so he's just signed a 4-year deal there, so that's very good. That's why I'm up in Boston right now. And no, it's been fascinating, really, because I've been able to speak with people, especially in the US side of things. I thought I had sort of touched with working in media, working as a coach with the national team, working at a professional team, knowing the youth system. I thought I'd pretty much spoken to everyone. But then as an agent, you morph into speaking to the business world as well, which has been very, very good, very eye-opening and educational at the same time.
Why are we seeing a kind of like another uptick after a pretty, I guess, dark period in US soccer history?
Well, if you go back, we had, so from 2015 through till 2017, so maybe 14 to 17, we had the most successful 2.5, 3-year cycle with the youth national teams. And we had the sporting director, the technical director of the youth national teams, now the head coach at Houston, Tab Ramos. Yeah. And then I was the under-19 head coach. Omid Namazi was the under-18s. John Hackworth, 17s. Sean Sakaris, the 16s. And Dave Vandenberg, the U15s. All excellent coaches. We had technical advisors all over the country, and we had over 300 some odd scouts all over the country. The U.S. Soccer Federation has pulled back a lot of that for various reasons, but and you have to give Tab Ramos an enormous amount of the credit. We didn't miss many players, and we got to see them all. We had all age groups covered. And we exposed the kids to a lot of top quality competition globally, and it gave an incredible amount of competition for the U17 World Cup side, and an incredible amount of competition for the U20 World Cup side, which in turn also allowed our players to be seen by a lot of scouts globally. And these are the players that are currently doing well in Europe right now. Your Tyler Adams, your Weston McKennies, your Christian Pulisic, go to Josh Sargents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all the players that went through that time period with U.S. Soccer, and they're still seeing the benefits of that now. Serginho Dest and the like coming up through it. So COVID has hit the youth national teams hard over the last 16 months or so. So once that gets rolling, you'll start to see more of these players perform on the biggest stage.
Oh, it's interesting. I kind of do understand the US system, but it is interesting, that it comes under a lot of criticism from Europeans, I think, because they have the pay for play. A lot of the time, there's a lot of fees and stuff. How do you find that sort of criticism?
Well, it completely just. at the grassroots level, but it's changing every single month. I would actually say, going year by year, every single MLS team and every USL championship team, their academies are all now free of charge, all the way down to the grassroots levels. And the more players that get sold and their solidarity payments and reciprocal payments, and when these club teams can get monies in, then they'll scholarship more and more players as they can. It's probably another 15, 20 years to eradicate the pay as you play model. Yeah. But it's slowly getting there.
Yeah. I think that kind of like our plan with this interview is to maybe use some of your comments in a piece for the Champions League final, but then also write a full interview where we get an overview of what you're doing right now. But with the Champions League final coming, is that kind of a statement of the US development as well? Because you've got two guys in there, Zach Steffen and Christian Pulisic. That's not normal to see, or hasn't been until now, really.
Yeah. And both those players came through that same time period that I was talking about. So Zach played with us in the going back, is it the 2015 World Cup, under 20 World Cup, and Christian Pulisic, obviously he was in with the 17s and then jumped straight up to the senior team. Yeah, I don't know if it's a statement, but I mean, Zach is an outstanding goalkeeper, and has an incredible future ahead of him. And and Christian is arguably our best player, but definitely on the attacking front, and is at one of the world's largest clubs in Chelsea. So it's fantastic for U.S. soccer. I'm not so sure it's a statement, but it's those two players deserve to be where they're at, and those two players have wonderful careers ahead of them.
Well, I think that everyone enjoyed watching your generation play for the national team back in the day, and you achieved a lot. Do you feel like this sort of group are sort of gearing up to try and do similar, or maybe even surpass it?
This team, and I don't know if it's going to be this World Cup, but if the majority of them stay to the next World Cup, that team will be at the closest since the 2002 team, and if not better by then. We had some wonderful players, Claudio Reyna at the top of his game, John O'Brien starting for Ajax at the time, right in the middle of the field, and Brian McBrides and myself and Eddie Pope and Frankie Haydux and Tony Sanas, and most all of our players were having big roles at European clubs, and that's what you're going to find again. Fully anticipate us qualifying for the World Cup, and once there, there's not too many midfielders better than your Weston McKennies and players like your Tyler Adamses, and provided our back line stands up to it. Got excellent goalkeeping, no matter who's the number one in the game. We have every chance of doing very well in the competitions. It got some really exciting young players as well coming through. So because we have so many young players, it might just be that one World Cup experience they need before they really come through in the next one. But it could happen this one too, because they're getting some incredible exposure, these players individually, playing with and amongst and against the best players on the planet. So things are looking really good for U.S. soccer.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see. I think a nation of the size of the US and the mentality of sportsmen in the US, it's just natural, and there must be a hunger from missing out on the last tournament. But I guess a word, because Pulisic's just such a star for us on our brand. What have you made of his rise? How impressive is it that he handles that pressure of being the marquee player? Because it's been, ever since he broke through at Dortmund, he's been the marquee player, and that's only ramping up with him being a Chelsea player now.
Yeah, I think his time at Dortmund obviously helped get his feet firmly set on the floor. And that's an enormous club. I was, second to only Bayern Munich, really, in Germany, and then had a big big for U.S. standards, a big price tag put on his head, and he goes and finds out exactly what Premier League's all about, and Premier League's not easy. I thought he performed very, very well, and he's had to deal with a few injuries. He's had to deal with a few little setbacks. He at the beginning, and had his little dip in form, and which most players do when you go to the Premier League. And he's an outstanding player. And you never know what happens in the futures of careers, and when head coaches change and they get fired and others get hired, and who likes who and who wants who. But if he just keeps his head down and works really hard, I don't see too many head coaches not being impressed with him.
Where do you see sort of the balance of the brand of a US player, versus people saying that the only reason they get a shot is because they're American as well? Like, you get the kind of people who say, "Oh, he's just for marketing," a player like Pulisic, or a different one.
The marketing's not as big as people think in the United States yet. Yeah. For that to even become a question. It's not like signing a player in who's Chinese, or maybe South Korean. He's not we're not at the marketing levels of a cricketer in India, for instance. So the US players that are at their clubs, and Christian, they're there on merit, just on their ability alone, not on their marketability.
Do you see that being something that develops in the future, though?
Absolutely. As every year the sport grows. Oh, without a doubt. I'm just saying, right now, today, he's signed because he can play.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. Scoring against Real Madrid in the semi-final proves it completely. I mean, I also wanted to just touch on Daryl Dike, just because he did that college pathway that you did, which I always find interesting. What have you made of that sort of pathway, and what does it take to make it through that route?
It's hard, and it's not a pathway that I would suggest to kids. I do suggest to kids, get your education, but you can get your education paid for at any academy now. Yeah. When you're a good player, especially when you're a national team player, have the ability of Daryl. You are taking your percentages of making it at the highest level, and you're taking them very low. I'm not saying you can't do it. I mean, there's evidence that a few people have done it, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, how did you find doing it that way? I guess it was a different landscape back then.
We didn't have a professional league back then. I would imagine that if we had a professional league, I would have probably tried to turn professional.
What was it like when you made your first move, when you did come to Europe?
Breath of fresh air. Was incredible, because we didn't have, the university system was like the under 23 league, if you like now. In the Premier League, all the best players played in it. It was good, but it was only a 4-month season, and if you weren't in with the national sides, then you didn't have competitive football all year round. So getting over there and having competitive football all year round is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and I remember, I think that you kind of you were put on the map really for me when I was reading about your story when you were in Turkey. Like, that must have been a baptism of fire for you doing that. You meant to move to England, and then you had to move to Turkey because of work permits and stuff.
Work permit regulations. Yeah, I first went to Brøndby and then went to Galatasaray.
All right. How did you find that?
Loved it. In fact, it was incredible. I mean, and the Turkish league is a good league. Yeah. It's the average English supporter probably wouldn't realize it, but it's a very high standard of a league. And your clubs, Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, Beşiktaş, Trabzonspor are big boys, and I know every now and again Basaksehir and some others get up into their top 4, but those clubs are enormous. I mean, I still walk around places today in the States, I always run into a Galatasaray supporter.
I bet that's one of the most common ones you run into. Yeah, massive club, and the support's amazing. But yeah, we'll be publishing this interview in many languages. It's not just English. So Turkish is one of the ones. So that's why I ask you about this, really. And you know, you experienced glory as well in Turkey. Can you tell me about that cup final?
Yeah, back then, or maybe they still do it today, but the cup final was spread over to a home and away leg, and we won at home 1-0. We lost in regulation 1-0 at Fenerbahce, so we went into extra time, and then Dean Saunders scored the winner, like right at the death, and it was magnificent. I mean, we're winning it, lifting the cup. We weren't able to lift the cup because of the violence and all the stuff that was thrown on the pitch. But at Fenerbahce's ground, and Graham Souness planted the flag that day. We were about 3 hours in the changing room. We couldn't get out. The bus, all the windows were broken out, but exhilarating. It was fantastic. I always say this, that if, as a player, and I'm not talking about the quality of the game, just talking about the moment and the atmosphere, if you can get through the Galatasaray Fenerbahce games, you can play in any derby with regards to atmosphere.
Really good interview, quite wide ranging, and yeah, I mean, your expertise in US soccer is just immense. So we really appreciate hearing that, and hilarious stories from Turkey as well. So thanks a lot.
Very good. You take care.
Yeah,
Have
you
a good
too.
one.
Thanks for your
All
time,
right.
mate.
You got it. Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.